Gabriela Carvalho has worked both on the agency and client sides, offering a comparison between both realities and being able to tell you which one is better for a career start. She has also worked on Reskilling Projects, revealing her vision for the next years. Is AI a threat or a friend of HR? Should developers start thinking of reskilling themselves? Meet Gabriela Carvalho.
Gabriela, thank you for accepting the invitation of being part of this podcast. In a short summary, what's happening in your life right now?
First of all, thank you for inviting me for this podcast. Well, a lot of work is happening, but also some personal things happening. I have my house under construction. That's why I'm not in my place right now. It's a mix of things.
So you spoke about work, and you have an interesting career that would be very interesting to share today with our viewers. But I would like to go back a little bit in time to start, Gabriela, and go back to your academical background. Because you have a background of applied social psychology, followed by a master in educational psychology and a postgraduate degree in HR management. So three more or less related, but still different areas.
Yeah.
But it all started with applied social psychology. So for the listeners that are unfamiliar with social cognition, social psychology, how would you define it in simple terms?
Okay. How I used to define is that this master, we studied the cognitive processes behind our social behaviors, like, for instance, stereotypes, prejudice, false memories. My master thesis was about false memories and first impressions. So basically, in short terms, in a short sentence, applied social cognition is the area of psychology which studies the cognitive processes behind our social behaviors.
What drew you into that area?
Funny story, because, one of the biggest ironies in my life is that when I started to study psychology, when I went to college, some people told me, oh, if you are going to psychology, at least go to human resources or organizational psychology. And I used to say, oh, that's so boring. Why are you telling me that? And these years later, here I am working in human resources. I found out this master in applied social psychology, where in theory, it would allow me to work in advertisement, namely on strategic planning of advertising campaigns. And so I thought, okay, I like advertisement. I like good advertisement. And so why not? So when I decided to go to this master, was not to study cognitive aspects of our social behavior. It was to go to start to work on advertisement.
So you went directly from the university into advertisement?
No, actually, I only had this one curricular internship in advertisement in a Portuguese advertisement agency.
Okay.
But when I finished my master in 2012, there wasn't, we were still on crisis, so there was not a lot of employment in advertisement, especially in this, for someone who did not study advertisement. And so when I finished my master, I started to work in the next thing, which was marketing research on qualitative studies. So still not in HR.
So the point that I was trying to understand here is that there's a connection between social psychology and then advertisement, to the point that even internships could be done to psychology students within advertisement context. So that's interesting.
That link is actually easy to understand. If you want to if you think to whom the advertising campaigns are for. I mean, they are for people, for humans. It is necessary, ideally, of course, it is necessary to study these people, to study, okay, we want to sell a mobile to young generations, for instance. And I'm just saying this as a theoretical example. What these generations want, how they are, what kind of profile do they have, so we can direct these campaigns to them. So that's the link between psychology and advertisement. Unfortunately, it's not that common to have, at least in Portugal, or at least 12 years ago in advertisement agencies, this strategic planning department. But it is actually an important way to do good advertisements. And just to finish this, I don't know exactly how it is now, but this link is so important, or is so strong, let's say, that I actually had a course in my 4th year in college, so my first year of the master, which was consumer behavior. It was quite interesting, and it actually studied, well, like the name says, how consumer behaves and how we can address these products, whatever, to consumers.
To influence
Exactly.
their behavior.
Exactly.
One funny thing, Gabriela, is that I also have a background in psychology, and until today, every time I meet someone new, and the conversation goes in the direction that I have to share my academic background, like 80% of the reactions are, "Oh, then you are reading my mind." I'm not sure if that happens with you or not, but
Yeah.
um, probably happens to everyone that has almost everyone that has a background in psychology. But specifically in your experience, what misconceptions do people often have about social cognition and its application?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything different?
No, that one is very common, that I can read others people's mind. Or another one that I also think it's quite funny is that I'm always studying people, whenever, and studying people's behavior.
Analyzing
Exactly.
people,
I'm
right?
always
You
I'm
are
always analyzing
profiling
people.
everyone.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is not true. Well,
But we are, right, Gabriela? We are profiling everyone. We are profiling everyone.
exactly.
Just between you and I, no one is listening.
Exactly. But that's another misconception. Another thing is that, well, when I say that, yes, I study psychology and I work in HR, people always assume that working, or a lot of time work, since I work in HR, I do only recruitment. So they tell me, oh, so you are not, people don't make you wrong when they are on interviews or something like that.
Hmm.
You know
We
people
wish.
for real. You don't get yeah.
You catch the liars, all the liars.
Exactly. So that's another funny misconception, which I would like to be true, but
We do, right? Yeah, we do.
but unfortunately not. Of course, I think that one thing that psychology gives to one that studies it is a little bit of more openness to different kind of people, to try to, sometimes too much, but to try to understand other people's behavior and why people do something or other thing. Maybe we are more open to that, but I'm not saying that we are the only ones who do that. That will be also a misconception.
Probably. Imagine someone is listening to us and is somehow at the point of their lives that they may choose to go in that direction as an academic background,
Mm.
psychology, social cognition, applied psychology. What advice would you give to that person that is interested to pursue that career?
Okay, to be patient. To be patient. Sometimes, at least it's what I feel now in retrospective to my life. I wasn't that patient, and I think that I was too eager to apply my learnings to see how these uh, all of that apply to real life. And one of the things that frustrated me is that I wasn't able to see that right away. So, and sometimes in psychology, and if you study psychology, you know that too, or you probably are aware of that too, is that the first years can be very theoretical. And sometimes it's hard for us to, and that's what somehow disappointed me. It was hard for me to understand, okay, but this is all in the books, but how does this apply to real life? So be patient.
Mm-hmm. You use the term real life. So I had a professor that said that most people talk about what's happening outside the university. Maybe this applies to all degrees, but specifically in psychology, outside university was real life. Like inside university, we discuss science fiction, not real life. So only outside university is the real life where the real problems exist. And we only discuss inside things that are not applicable on real life.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. I'm not sure if it will be a misconception, but that belief that in universities, in academia, people study a lot of theoretical aspects, and I felt that honestly. For instance, on my post graduation in human resources management, yes, it was very interesting. But once you go to the companies, you see that the world works a little bit differently than it is studied on the academia. So
that's the real life. That's the real life.
It's
the reality check.
Yes, I'm not saying that at universities they don't study real life or they don't have a real life. Of course they have, but sometimes what I feel or what I felt is that it was necessary to add a little bit more of a corporate life, not real, but corporate life, for instance, to this academic life.
So you mentioned that you had the chance to start working in advertisement, and then after a while, you ended up finally going into human resources. According to what is visible in your profile, you have both the experience working on the client side, internal human resources, as well as on the external recruitment agency. So you had the chance to experience both sides, of the recruitment coin, let's say. Yeah. What surprised you the most when you transitioned from this one side of the recruitment to the other? So you now work on final client, just to clarify. So what did you feel when you changed from external to internal?
Yes, I started, for instance, at Egor. I think I can say the companies here.
It's only on your profile.
Exactly. So at Egor as a trainee, working as a consultant, and the profiles which I recruited were kind of hard somehow because it was hard. It was call center agents, commercials, door to door, back office administrators. It was temporary workers. And the recruitment was sometimes the recruitment needed to be very, very fast. For instance, I remember this time that in the morning, the client call us saying that they needed like 10 people. I don't know if it's 10, but let's say it was 10 people to do an inventory at that night in a big store in Madeira or Açores or whatever. And so I went to the database, I contacted those 10 people, and at the lunchtime, we had those 10 people to do the inventory at that night. But that's after lunch. They told us, after all, it's not necessary. And so I called them again saying, okay, it's not necessary. Mm-hmm. However, at the end of the day, they call me again saying, okay, after all, we need that people. So
glad you already had them.
Exactly. So in these kind of agencies on temporary workers, it's very, very fast and you have to be very agile. And this actually helped me because when I was doing internal recruitment, I also needed to be agile. There was also, and where I spent most time doing this recruitment was in a company that I really liked. But the recruitment was always on. So I also needed to be very agile to always have candidates on the pipeline, because I knew that even if today I don't have any open vacancy, probably tomorrow or the next day I will have. So I was always interviewing people to have this pipeline and to be agile. Despite that, yes, on the agency it could be harder, because you also have to, or more challenging, let's say, because you have to deal with different clients. Sometimes you think that you are on a good path, and after all, you are not, and this was also in the beginning of my career, so I was still learning how to drive these these ways. But yes, that's the difference. You have to, when you are on a recruitment agency, you have to adapt to different contexts. And when you are on a company as working in internal recruitment, you know the context. You are in the context, and
Yes.
also, and that's one of the things that I prefer when I work internally, is that you are able to see the path of that employee that you hire. You can see their development, their career development, and that's very interesting.
Tell me if you agree with this analogy that I've used some time in my life. When you work in a recruitment agency, imagine that life is a disco. There's a party happening somehow. And so if you work in a recruitment agency, you are at the door giving flyers to people and telling them, hey, there's a big party happening there in that building. Do you want to come in? Do you want to come in? And you are picking people to take into your guest list for them to get into the party. But you don't have the chance to get into the party. Just give people the chance to be at the door and be selected to go into the party. And then if you work on the final client, then you are the doorman of the party. So you are the one receiving people, looking at them, see, you could go in, you cannot go in, you have the right clothes, you have the right shoes. No, we only want ladies because it's ladies' night. And so you are the one letting the people in the party. Okay.
Yeah.
Does this make any sense for you?
Yeah. I never thought of recruitment as that, but it makes sense.
HR is a party. Bottom line, HR is a party.
Exactly. But yes, it makes sense, and it's an interesting analogy.
Okay. Then, with all that said, Gabriela, imagine that I'm finishing a degree in psychology, HR, and I have some internships at my disposal to choose. And one of them is on a recruitment agency. The other one is on a HR department in a company, general company. It doesn't matter the sector, industry right now. What would you recommend someone to start their career on?
I think I'm a little bit suspicious to answer that, because I've already said what I do prefer, but I would say to choose the internal HR department, because I strongly believe that working on an agency gives you some agility and strength, and gives you a lot of experience, considering for different contexts, and that's quite interesting. But on the other hand, if the person wants to have a broader knowledge of HR, not only recruitment, but wants to know a little bit more about payroll, development, performance evaluations, etc., all the things that HR covers, the HR department will be more useful for that.
Thank you.
I don't know if you agree. I would like to hear your opinion.
If our seats were the opposite, probably I would answer depends, because it's not a straight answer for that question. Depends of the kind of recruitment or consultancy agency, depends on the sector. But on the other side, or on contrary, someone could say, and maybe I share a little bit their opinion, which is on the consultancy side, you grow faster because you experience lots of different realities from different clients, different dynamics, and you have the chance not only to work within one single context, but many. And in
Yeah,
that
that's
sense, some
true.
people, which I may agree as well, would say that it allows you to grow faster, but grow only in recruitment if you're
Yeah,
talking about
that's the thing.
recruitment and recruitment agency. But some there are some opportunities as well in HR consultancy, which would broaden the scope to also training and development, change management, etc. So that definitely that would be my choice if I had the chance to work on a consultancy kind of environment with a broader scope of the services that the company will provide.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm, What are the biggest challenges that recruiters face when working with clients?
Well, they don't have control of the process. And sometimes clients can be very challenging because they want this unicorn with wings, and that unicorn with wings does not exist. And so I think that's one of the challenges for the recruitments from external agencies. They have to deal with clients who want the impossible. On the
Mhm.
other hand, we know that in clients sometimes the decision takes some time, and sometimes the processes go back and forth a lot of times. And one day you have a process that is open, and the next day, due to something that is once again completely out of control from the agency, and from even from hiring managers, the process needs to stop. And when that happens, sometimes the recruitment agency, the recruiter, has already spent so much time in finding candidates and trying and making interviews, screening CVs, making interviews, etc., etc. And now the process is stopped or is in standby. So that's it. For me, that's another big challenge that recruiters face. But then again, I also this is also a challenge that internal recruiters, let's put it that way, also face. So the difference is that these internal recruiters have more visibility of what's going on, and so they can, okay, I understand why this process is is now on standby.
It hurts so deep when that happens. It hurts so deep, especially when you are working in an agency and the agency works contingency based
Yeah,
and you have a bonus that is dependent on the placement. It
yeah,
hurts like hell. Um,
yeah,
but then if you work clever, you probably already have 10 other clients to place that candidate.
yeah, yeah,
That's the only way you'll have success in recruitment agency contingency based is to
yeah,
spin the candidates through many potential clients, because
yeah.
if one drops, you have 10 more. Even being on the client side nowadays, what are the most common mistakes that companies make in their hiring process?
Some of these are contradictory between themselves. One is to try to find like I was saying, the unicorn with wings, and they sometimes the processes take a lot of time because they are looking for the perfect candidate, and they already have 10 very good, excellent candidates, but they still want to see one more candidate because they are not happy enough. And 10 candidates, it's not good enough. It's not. So we want more candidates. And sometimes, for me, that's a mistake that companies sometimes do.
Mhm.
Another mistake, and that's the opposite, is to want to fill that position very fast. And they ended up to fill it with the first candidate. Okay, and I'm just giving you a silly example. This person speaks, they walk, so it's good for the job, and sometimes it's not. But sometimes this happens because they know that if they don't fill the position in 1 month, the position will be closed, and they actually hope to develop that person, or they really need that to fill the position because they need someone to work. Another mistake, not be fully aware of, and that's hard to be but what are the expectations from the candidate and how they align to company values and company culture. Okay. Sometimes even when we are talking about internal recruiters, they don't know what are the cultural values or cultural behaviors that of the company. But we really need to understand if that person will be a good fit for that job, for that team, for that company. Because sometimes people, they could be great employees, they could have a great set of skills, but for some reason, for instance, I'm just giving you a silly example. I can be a very good programmer or a very good developer, but if I have to wear a tie every day, I will not thrive in this kind of environment because I will feel stuck. So this sometimes is also a mistake that companies do. They end up to put people that won't fit the company in some roles. But once again, I think this also is a homework that the candidate has to do. It's not only about the company, it's also about the candidate who needs to understand if they will fit that role, that company.
Just a small note, you use the expression unicorn with wings. So I'm used to the term just unicorn because already only unicorn is something that is difficult to find. But in your context, it's unicorn with wings. So it's an even more difficult unicorn.
Oh, sorry. I use this expression unicorn with wings. I don't know since when, but for a long time now. Not only here at Atlas Copco, but it's, well, I like to say unicorn with wings because it's even more difficult than a unicorn.
So the other companies may keep the unicorns because here we only want is unicorns but with wings.
Exactly.
Right? That's the mindset on your company. Okay.
Not only in my company, but yeah, I said, I use this concept, this term for a very long time now. So.
Okay, cool. So we'll get to the point to understand your current situation. But before going there, because you work at SAP before, right? And specifically, I'm very interested to understand what you did as a project leader for a project, or I'm trying to understand the right terms here because I've never addressed this in my life. So it was a reskilling for employment project. And correct me if I'm not using the proper terms here. So this is something that I'm not aware of any kind of initiative like this. And I would like to understand, or that you could share with everyone listening, what SAP was or is still doing in reskilling the population and workforce transformation, because especially now with AI and all those threats about, well, what will happen to my job, etc. What projects exist in reskilling?
So taking a step back here, reskilling for employment is actually an European project that is it was founded by ERT, European Roundtable, which basically is, and I'm keeping it simple, it's an association of companies which SAP is part of. Okay, so this organization decided, okay, they realized, like we all have already done, there are a lot of job openings in different areas, and a lot of people, the current job of a lot of people won't be a job anymore in a few years because of AI, etc., etc. And so we need to requalify, reskill these people so they can fill not only these positions that are today open, but also the positions that will be open in the future because of this change in the world. Yeah. And so SAP in Germany, they decided, okay, we want to be part of this. We will be founders of this project. And so in Spain, Portugal, and Germany, we were pilots of this project. Okay. So in Portugal, we were founders of this project, which once again in Portugal, was named ProMov, pro_mov. Okay. If you Google it, you will certainly find a page regarding that and a lot of information. So what was the ProMov? Is like, let's say, the Portuguese project for reskilling for employment. And in Portugal, this ProMov, like the name say, the original name says, it aims to reskill people, but it aims to reskill people in different professional areas. So they have different work groups, which we called labs. They have the digital lab, the health lab, the industrial lab, etc., etc. And the goal of each lab was to create trainings related to those labs, related to those work areas, and train people on those jobs. Each lab had a leader, a company leader, okay, which coordinated the work of all the lab. So the lab had a company leader, and a lot of other companies who supported the leader in organizing all of this. And this was also supported by Portuguese Employment Agency, so EFP. SAP was the leader of the digital lab.
What does that mean, being the leader of the digital lab?
It meant that we were responsible for organizing the work, let's say, of that lab. And what kind of work? We were talking about deciding what were the trainings that we were creating. And for instance, we had on the digital lab the software developer training, the front-end developer training. So we were responsible for, okay, let's open these courses that location in Porto, Lisbon, Braga, whatever. Let's open those courses in those locations. Let's make sure that we have, and once again, take a step back here. These trainings were theoretical trainings, 4 months, and 3 months of practice, like an internship. Okay,
7 months in total.
Exactly. Okay. And so before we open the classes, we needed to be sure that we had enough companies to absorb these students for this 3-month internship. So that was the kind of work that the lab leader did to make sure that all the pieces were together.
Who were the target of this program? Any unemployed person in those cities that you mentioned, or there were some criteria?
There was some criteria, of course.
For example,
they needed, for instance, to have the high school completed. They needed to speak English or the basic level of English. They also needed to perform some psychometric tests.
So they had to have good scores on general aptitude tests that you applied.
Exactly.
It's not easy to be a developer. You need to use some cognitive abilities to a certain level, and not everyone is able to do that. So that's
exactly. But basically, those were the criteria. We didn't expect people to already have some training on some kind of area related to that, because that was not the point. The point was to reskill, requalify people who could be unemployed or could be working and decide to do that training too.
Okay. So imagine you open a course in Lisbon for a group of people. How big would that course be in terms of the amount of people that would join those 7 months?
The maximum number of students was 20.
20 per course.
Exactly.
Okay. And what do you promise employability in the end in one of those companies?
Well, no, we didn't promise.
No.
We could not promise that. That will be, like I used to say, the cherry on top of the cake. If after the internship, the student
I had a job guarantee.
Exactly. But we couldn't promise that because that was something that only depended on the company. Okay.
Okay.
That was a possibility. and for instance, SAP also did these internships, and we have integrated some of the students that did this internship, but some others we didn't. So yeah.
Okay. So this was a free course through the
Yeah.
employment agency. So I
Yeah.
didn't, if I'm enrolled, I don't pay anything. And in the end,
No,
I may have
you actually get
an employment allowance during that period.
exactly.
So I'm being paid as well. That's wow. That sounds good. And so when I saw this, and without knowing the level of detail that I now know, thanks to your sharing, I assume that if SAP was somehow managing this, probably they would take those, now I know 20 people, and they will become SAP developers, ABAP developers, and
No,
be integrated immediately in the company. But that's not the
actually,
reality.
No. Actually, the training was more generic than that. They had like Java, C#. It was more generic. Okay, so because
More
the goal.
baseline.
Sorry.
More baseline for you to indeed reskill yourself from any other area. Now with some bases in IT development, in engineering,
exactly, because the goal
programming
was to train these people on the basics so they could then develop on the companies. And if we train people only on SAP, ABAP, whatever, there are a lot of companies who don't use SAP or who don't use ABAP. So that's
only
one.
consultant companies or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this still running, this program?
Yeah. And very, very strong.
Very strong. What do you mean by that? Very strong.
I mean that they are doing well. At this point, I'm only a spectator. Yeah. But I know that they have built like a page that's kind of match candidates with companies. For instance, they are having more trainings now, not only on digital lab but other labs. So a project that 1 year ago or 2 years ago was giving the first steps, now it's working by itself. And of course, I can imagine with this still a lot of work, but currently it's a big ecosystem with more companies being part of it. For instance, Atlas Copco is already or will be, fingers crossed, part of it, not on digital lab, but on the industrial lab.
So you'll get back to managing these things soon.
No, because the industrial lab already have the lab leader, is Nestlé.
Okay, yes, right. Only the leader has the impact.
Yeah. So my goal is
maybe Nestlé is listening.
No, my goal is just to have some students doing the internship here.
Okay. So imagine that by chance I'm in Portugal, I'm hearing this video, I'm unemployed, I don't know what to do in my life, but I'm interested in this, in reskilling my life. What do I need to do?
It's quite easy. You can go Google ProMov and you'll find the webpage where you can find the different courses, the different dates, the different locations, and you just apply.
So how would you define the success of a reskilling initiative?
I think it's a process that is still in place. And of course, we cannot only consider this project. There are fortunately a lot of projects that aim to reskill population. And I think they are being successful. And there are, on my project, my former project, let's say, there are a lot of successful cases of people who actually changed their lives. This is not just being naive but unemployed people that did these trainings and found new jobs. This happened. So of course we would like to see this on a larger scale, but this is already happening. When I left it was still on a small scale, but I believe that now it's bigger.
Okay. If I understood correctly, this committee of companies, they are also managing some European funds for this project,
Yeah.
or not? Yes.
Portuguese actually the funds in Portugal were given by EFP. Okay.
Government funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there were also some financial done by the companies.
By the companies. Okay. So specifically the government funds, if the government or the unemployment agency asks for, hey, what is the return of the investment that we're doing here? And somehow this goes down, cascades down, and got to you in the past, or may got to you in the future again. How do you measure the return of investment in reskilling these people? Is it for? I'm gonna put some options here on the table, just for me to thinking out loud here. So it's the number of people that finish the course, but that does not guarantee employment. Is it the number of people that got employment after having the course? Is it only that people that managed to sustain the job after 6 months?
It's kind of funny because there was this meeting where one of the topics was exactly that. How do we measure the
Someone asked.
success? How do we measure the success? And
Yeah.
we actually thought about the employment of these people 6 months after they finish the training. But we realized that will be probably hard to follow up. So the biggest measure, let's say, it was really the how many people or the percentage of people that were employed after the training. Okay. Yeah, that will be the biggest KPI.
Probably I would add there the number of unemployment allowance that were stopped being paid because people were employed. So that would be an objective metric.
Yeah, but the interesting part is that not everyone was unemployed or was getting the unemployment allowance before they start the course. Okay. And
okay.
Yeah. Sometimes people were unemployed for a very long time and they weren't eligible anymore for the.
Okay.
That happened too. So
right.
They got this allowance for being part of the training. Yes, they were paid, but this was not the unemployment allowance.
Makes sense. Okay. So now you're working in the industrial sector.
Yeah,
in Atlas
big change.
Big change. So big change, new challenges, Gabriela.
Yeah.
From an HR perspective, what's different working in the industrial sector?
Well, first of all, and I don't like to make this distinction, but one of the biggest differences is that I was used to work only with white collar employees, and now I'm working with white collar and blue collar employees, and that's a change. The needs are different. The way to work with is different, so that's a big change. It's a challenge, and when I accepted this challenge, I knew that I would face different things, and it's being interesting.
Do you work in office or plants
in
industry?
The office? No, I work in the office. Yeah.
Okay, and are you required to visit the factories or?
In Portugal, Atlas Copco doesn't have plants. Okay, we don't have. What we have or what we do is to sell compressors. Okay, and our technicians do the maintenance of these compressors in clients. Okay, so they are not in internal facilities, let's say. They are on clients' facilities.
So those would be the blue-collared workers that you were mentioning. From everything that normally a general HR person do, from recruitment, development, rewards, performance management, etc. Are there specific things that need to be adjusted when doing all this, but on the industry?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, people want the same. They want career development, they want salary progression, they want to be challenged. I think that the biggest difference is really how people see themselves in their careers. They also want to develop themselves, they also want to progress. But how they see themselves and how do they expect it's a little bit different.
When you say they see themselves different, is because they are more aggressive, less aggressive in terms of career pursuits? They have different priorities in life?
I'm not saying this more or less aggressive, more or less demanding. It's just different, and I'm still learning how to navigate these differences.
You felt a difference.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
felt. Okay. What kind of adaptation did you have to do personally to adapt to the new sector?
I came from SAP, where the majority of employees were salespersons salespersons, let's say, and SAP consultants, developers, etc.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it could be demanding in some aspects. The technicians, which is the majority of the workforce at Atlas Copco, they are also demanding, but in other aspects. Okay, and this was something that I needed to learn. And sometimes we came with some ideas, and then we realized, okay, no, this would be a good idea, but not here, or something could be a bad idea there, and here is a good idea. Okay.
Okay. So it's because of those differences that sometimes when job descriptions for HR leaders are drafted, they want specific people that come from the sector, right? To already know how the people behave, the kind of people, how to address them.
Yeah, some kind of experience. For instance, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, I've never worked with unions, and now I'm working with unions.
That's a good
Yeah.
example how to deal with unions, right? So sometimes they want their companies want that specific experience. What I'm trying to say here and where I'm trying to get is that it's just a conversation between you and I. Does it make sense for companies and headhunters, etc., to really focus on just on people on those sectors to have that experience, or somehow it's also possible to get a very good HR leader from a different sector and bring him to industry, to pharmacy, although he has always worked on banks, always works on IT, and the person can somehow adapt or show that he's able to also apply the same success formula than before, but in a different sector.
Well, using your earlier answer, I would say it depends on. It depends
Right.
on how.
That's a clever answer. Always.
Exactly. It depends on how fast you want the person to be. To be on top of the job. If you want someone, if you need, sometimes it's not about wanting, it's about needing. Someone who was already prepared to work with unions to do this or do that, then maybe yes, it makes sense to look into to find people or to hire people that already has that experience. However, if you want someone, if you don't need that, but you want someone who can bring some new ideas and new ways of working, then maybe you can look into different sectors. So
Yep.
it depends.
So you have the chance to work on all these internal, external, different sectors, etc. If you look back in your career, how has HR changed since you started your career, and where do you think it's heading in this next decade?
I think since I started, and it's hard for me to to admit that because in my head I started yesterday and I'm still a 20-something year-old girl that is starting her career. But I think that HR has changed something, and I don't know if you agree or not, but I think that over the last few years, HR is being considered much more part of the business than it was before. I think that also with the COVID and all of the changes, fast changes that there were necessary to be done back then in March 2020, companies started to see HR as, okay, this could be an ally. This is not just someone who is doing the payroll or doing the recruitment. They could really be helpful in these changes that we are facing. And now, for the future, I think that HR will be more and more and more this partner, and not just a department that is there doing some operational things, which was the idea that I had back in 2007 when I started college, and I said, human resources, that's boring.
So if HR now is more closer to the business, how do you think HR can align its strategies with the broader business objectives?
One of the things is that HR could understand better what are the needs of people. Needs, and when I say needs, I say development needs, training needs, but also being part of the business, understand what are the business needs. Because, and I'm giving you a silly example, my people could have this need or this willingness to train in, I don't know, bakery, but that wouldn't make any sense for the business, right? So also understanding the business and being closer to the business, the HR can align how the people needs could fit the business needs, and then how the business needs could fit the people development.
Sounds like what you're suggesting is HR to be in the middle there, where it closes the bridge between the business needs and the people needs.
Yeah.
Like connecting them or aligning them in somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
In that sense, looking especially for the future, what are, in your opinion, what are the top 3 skills that every HR professional should develop, already have, or should develop right now?
They should be agile.
What does that mean? Gabriela, help me.
It
Be
means
agile?
that what is true today there's a possibility that it's not true tomorrow. Once again, on the COVID, one day people were working in the office, on the other day people were working remotely, and HR needed to think about how to change the policies, how to change the work setup very fast, right? So when I say agile in this sense, I also think that HR should have not only in the future but right in the present too, but also of course in the future, should be very willing to listen and to understand what people need, what the business needs. Once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but should be a good listener. And finally, they also should be open to learn new skills. And I know that you ask me what are the skills, but I think that being open to learn new skills is
Whatever they are. Yes.
Whatever they are. Yes, because we don't know.
Yourself.
Exactly, because we don't know what the future brings. I have this hope that in the future, people or the majority of the administrative tasks, the boring administrative tasks, will be done by AI or something like that. But for that to happen, I don't want to turn thousands of people unemployed who are doing that kind of job now. So these people need to, once again, reskill themselves and learn new skills.
Reskilling is the word for our conversation, right?
But I think that's important for everyone. I mean, even a developer. A few years ago, a developer was a career of the future. Developers made a lot of money and still do. But today, ChatGPT or it's already able to code web pages and etc. etc. So even developers, maybe they start to need to think about reskill themselves or develop new skills. Not really reskilling, but develop new skills.
Developers need to start thinking of reskilling themselves. I'm not sure if anyone ever said something like that, but you were bold enough to to
But do you
mention
agree
that.
with me? Do you understand what?
I totally agree. I'm not a developer. I'm speaking without knowledge, but I'm hearing from many influencers, not influencers, sorry, influencing people out there that they see a future in 5 years or less with no developers as we know today.
Yeah.
And you said it very well. So some years ago, the career of success was being a developer. For many times in my life, I thought, hey, maybe I should stop doing HR and go take an engineering course, because there was that golden path in engineering. But nowadays, maybe all the engineers in LinkedIn will disagree, and please express that in the comments. But that's what I'm starting to hear. That's what I'm starting to hear, is that programming roles will not have the same future as they have today. I'm not sure if it's good, if it's bad. For sure, there needs to be some skills even to apply AI into programming, but it's not going to be the same thing. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We're closer to the end, Gabriela.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to, before we go, to understand, with all this reskilling, with all this AI around us, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, that's an unfair question.
That's the kind of questions we have here. Unfair.
Because I really don't know, honestly. And
at least you didn't say depends.
I mean, maybe I will still be working in HR, but who knows? 10 years ago, I never thought about working in HR. Or 10 years ago, yes, I already worked in HR. I was already working in HR, but that's when I started to study educational psychology. So what I'm saying here is that things change, and I don't know if in 10 years I will still be working in HR, or if I will still be or if I will start to work in the meantime in project management, which is something that I also liked. And I always think, okay, maybe one day I should do some training in project management, or if I will reskill myself completely and do something completely different, or if I will be retired writing my books. I really like to write. So,
is there anything published that we should be aware of?
No.
But it's in process.
No, not yet, because I used to say that if one day I have the Euromilhões, I will stop working and I will start writing and maybe publishing books. But since I don't play, it's hard. It's hard that it will be difficult for that to happen.
Maybe you can use AI to write the book.
No. I want to be the writer. My goal with AI is that AI does the things that I don't like to do, not the things that I like to do.
In the end, I ask all the guests in this show to tell me one person that they think could be an interesting guest for this show. And I would like to ask you as well, who do you think could be an interesting guest to bring next to this show?
Eli Walsh. I worked with him at Kantar World Panel. After that, he went to Danone, and now he's working at AstraZeneca. He was a great manager.
Challenge accepted, Gabriela. Before we go, the last challenge is I will bring, at the same time, 2 HR topics that I will ask you to compare and choose which one is more important, either this or that. Then you choose one, and I drop the other one, and then I bring another, and you choose again. And we do that several times. And then in the end, the topic that we have in the end should be for you the most important HR topic. Okay? Let's see where that goes. Okay?
Okay.
So let's start then between talent acquisition and training and development.
Unfair, but talent acquisition.
Between talent acquisition and compensation and benefits.
Compensation.
Between compensation benefits and performance management.
Performance.
Between performance management and employee relations.
Performance management.
Between performance management and workforce planning and HR analytics.
Performance management.
Performance management and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, performance management. Yeah.
Performance management and HR technology and systems.
I feel kind of repetitive here, but performance management.
And the last one, performance management and engagement and retention.
Performance management.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think that performance management could aggregate a lot of things from these other areas.
Could be. Gabriela Carvalho, performance management above all. That's what we found today as well. Thank you for coming to this show. And who knows, maybe one day our paths could cross physically out there somewhere.
Who knows?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.